I love the robot voice. Okay, well, hello. Welcome to week 6, module 6 of a paraeducator training course. And in this module, we're going to be talking all about PBIS and SPED. Today's just going to be an overview. We won't go too into depth on anything, but come along. Let's see what we're going to be about. Okay, these are the 4 things we'll cover in this module as far as the lectures go. And the first one says schedule provisions. We want to just keep in mind the pacing of the course and when things will need to be done. Okay, number 2, this is today. We'll do a lesson discussion on positive behavior intervention systems, PBIS. Really just a short overview, a brief overview of PBIS for you. Tomorrow we will talk outside of other things that we have to get done. We will talk about an outline of SPED and begin talking about all of our special education subjects. Finally, on the last day of the module this week, we're going to review person first language, or start talking about it a bit more. We started this week off with a pre-test, and we will end this week with a post-test. So we'll keep those things in mind too when we're thinking about our scheduling. All right, if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and take care of the SPED pretest. It is in the week 6 module. A few key terms to introduce. A few key terms to introduce. PBIS, positive behavior interventions and supports. You might hear it being called intervention system, but I believe this is the correct expansion of that acronym, interventions and supports. Interventions, because it is action that is brought in at a time of need, and ideally, when that happens is as soon as possible, as soon as a challenge, a difficulty has been identified. Okay, the interventions work hand in hand with the supports to try to remedy a situation using the whole team. Okay, here are a couple of different just terms, regular English terms. Punitive. Things that are punitive, as you might guess, are about punishment. So we talk about punitive measures. These are things done to punish someone, retribution. And that's fine for the criminal justice system, but not for the education system. Oh no, we try never to be punitive. Instead, we want to be instructive. So these are 2 different ways that we can approach problems. If you get a chance to look closely at the language of PBIS, it's all about redirecting towards better things. So instead of saying something along the lines of, you did this wrong, go sit in the corner, like we used to do when maybe our parents were kids, instead we will say something along the lines of, this is how we do this. That's not the way that we do this, but this is the way that we do this. So it's a sort of a teaching moment, an opportunity to have a teaching moment. It takes a large spread out support structure for PBIS to work. We can't, just do it by ourselves. It doesn't seem to work as well that way. Pardon me. Okay. Infidelity. Things that are done infidelity are done in good faith with best intentions in mind, and in partnership. All right. And a framework, you might hear this term bandied about a little bit when we talk about PBIS, because PBIS itself is a framework. It's sort of the groundwork or the basis, you could say, for intervening with students, for dealing with behavior, towards remediating, ameliorating behavior. There's a lot of different frameworks. This is just one of them, but it's one that is very widespread. You could say it's very popular at this time. So it's a framework that it's worth getting comfortable with, getting familiar with. Okay, how about the LPAC? So, you know, folks, it's not just the eligibility for special ed services that we evaluate, but also people's language, language in use, so, or use of language. So language proficiency assessment committee is something that would assemble to determine whether or not someone qualifies as an ELL, English language learner. Okay, ADA, we've briefly talked about this before. The Americans with Disabilities Act has made a lot of things better for a lot of folks. ADD stands for Attention Deficit Disorder. This is one of the exceptionalities that we'll begin to talk about. ADHD is Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. And when we say AE in different places, it means age equivalent. Okay, whew. Lots of vocabulary this week. All right, so let's begin talking about PBIS. Positive behavioral interventions and supports is an evidence-based, three-tiered framework for improving and integrating all of the data, the systems, and the practices affecting student outcomes every day. It is a way to support everyone, especially students with disabilities, to create the kinds of schools where all students are successful. Okay, so in order to do PBIS, there are a lot of things that have to happen. And you might be saying to yourself, well, how am I going to know all these different things? I haven't been trained in this. And what if my school uses PBIS? Are they going to hire me? I don't know about PBIS. Will they even hire me? Certainly. Yeah. In my experience, yes, they will. And what they'll do to remediate that is they'll train you. They'll train you in PBIS. In my home school district, there are trainings every single month for PBIS. And it works best when it's, as I said, when it's large and distributed. So when there's support across the organization. So they really want to get folks trained. Okay. Let's talk about the 4 pillars of PBIS. Systems, data, practices, outcomes. Okay, we start with systems. The way schools operate are their foundational systems. In PBIS, these systems support accurate, durable implementation of practices and the effective use of data to achieve better outcomes. Okay. So this gives us the relationship to all of the other 3 pillars. Okay. Accurate, durable implementation of practices. Practices. Key to improving outcomes are the strategies to support students at every level. In PBIS, these interventions and strategies are backed by research to target the outcomes schools want to see. Okay, so this is kind of telling us that these practices aren't sort of made up out of thin air, but they are research-based, based on education research. So they should be quite robust and not just something that's made up, like a motivational speech or something like that. Okay, the effective use of data. Schools generate multiple pieces of data about students every day. Within the PBIS framework, schools use data to select, to monitor, and evaluate outcomes, practices, and systems across all three of the tiers. Okay, we use these data to achieve better outcomes, don't we? The outcomes from PBIS are what schools achieve through the data, systems, and practices they put into place. These could include improved student behavior. That is the goal, isn't it? Okay, so we talked about how PBIS has 3 tiers of support. It's a triple-tiered framework, and each one aligns to the type of support that students need. These are the tiers. You know, another way to say tier would be sort of level or layer, I guess. Okay, here's the first tier, universal prevention. So my slide here says, universal prevention all. All means everybody, for everybody. Tier 1 systems, data, and practices impact everyone across all settings. They establish the foundation for delivering regular proactive support and preventing unwanted behaviors. Okay, what are the systems that make this happen? An established leadership team, regular meetings, establishing a positive school-wide social culture, ongoing use of data for decision-making, professional development plans, PD plans, training us, and a personnel evaluation plans. So right in the middle of this one, we have regular meetings, establishing a positive school-wide social culture. This is the distributed nature that I've mentioned twice already. Okay, practices at this tier. This is the everybody tier. School-wide positive expectations and behaviors are taught. Established classroom expectations are aligned with school-wide expectations. Okay, so ideally we have everyone matching up this way. It's hard to achieve, but it can be done. A continuum of procedures for encouraging expected behavior. In other words, we want to try to get everyone doing the same things to try to get the behaviors that we want people to do. And also a continuum of procedures for discouraging problem behavior. These two things go hand in hand. All right. The second tier is about targeted prevention. It's only for some. It's not for all. Tier 2 systems, data, and practices provide targeted support for students who are not successful with Tier 1 supports alone. The focus here is on supporting students who are at risk for developing more serious problem behavior before those behaviors start. All right, the foundational systems of Tier 2. An intervention team with a coordinator, behavioral expertise, fidelity and outcome data getting collected. There's a screening process to identify students needing Tier 2 support, as well as access to training and technical assistance. Okay, so what do we really do at Tier 2? What are the practices? There's increased instruction and practice with self-regulation and social skills. Also increased adult supervision for some folks, the folks that need this. There are increased opportunities for positive reinforcement. Increased pre-corrections. Yeah, pre-corrections is it's a PBIS practice. We'll talk more about that in a future talk. There's also increased focus on possible function of problem behaviors. What's causing this behavior, right? That's what folks are asking in Tier 2. And increased access to academic supports. Okay, so if we go back to Tier 1, we've got something that appeals to all, right? Next is something that appeals to some or applies to some. Tier 3 is something that applies to few. This one's called intensive prevention. This one's about intensive individualized prevention. So it turns out that at most schools, there are between 1% and 5% of students for whom tiers 1 and tier 2 supports have not connected. At tier 3, these students receive more intensive individualized support to improve their behavioral and academic outcomes. All right, these are the folks who need the most help. So we're providing them with the most scaffolding. The foundational systems of tier 3 include a multidisciplinary team, the MDT that we've talked about before, behavior support expertise, and formal fidelity and outcome data getting collected regularly. All right, practices at tier 3, function-based assessments, wraparound supports that go throughout the day, throughout the school day, and cultural and contextual fit. So it's at this level that we might be asking more serious questions along the lines of, should there be, in terms of the supports that are being delivered to the student, can we fit them more closely to a cultural or contextual need that the student might have? Okay, I promise this is not the end of the discussion on PBIS. I just threw a lot of jargon and words at anyone hearing my voice. So we will return to this in a future talk. But for now, yeah, I hope that the brief introduction here to PBIS has helped you understand a little bit about it.